There's a lesson that is dawning on humanity, a species that has suffered from insanity.
This is Peak Moment. We are living at a peak of human innovation, information, wealth, and health. But we're also at a peak of population and consumption, with rising temperatures and declining resources fueled by cheap oil and gas. Peak Moment Television, bringing you examples of positive responses to energy decline and climate change through local community action.
Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson. I'm in the library at Orcas Island, where they're having an art auction, which seems a very fitting background to having artists and musicians here to talk about what they do to spread the word about the environment. So my guests today are Sharon Abreu and what? Who's this? Hey, a fish out of water. and Mike Hurwitz. Hi, thanks for joining us. So
Great to be
how
here.
did you get involved with using the arts? I mean, it's too much fun, right? Using the arts to educate folks about the environment. How did it happen?
Well, we met in New York City, and we were involved with the Hudson River Sloop Clearwater Environmental Group using music and celebration to educate about the local environment. And so we started doing a show in New York City called Turn the World Upside Down. We would get hired by the Brooklyn Arts Council, go into public schools, and do this show, our own show with music about water and recycling. And then we ended up moving out to Washington State, and we started a nonprofit called Earthlings.
Earthlings with a Z.
With an I at the beginning and a Z at the end.
Earthlings, okay.
And so that we could do our own environmental education projects. And we started doing a show, we created a show called The Great Climate Caper, which was premiered right here in East Sound on Orcas Island in 2002 by local middle school students. And we've rewritten that show now. It's now called Penguins on Thin Ice.
Penguins on Thin Ice. That sounds like it's got to be about global warming.
It is, yeah. Well,
Folks, that's Penguins on Thin Ice. And you can learn more about it by going to penguinsonthin.com.
Okay. Wait a minute. I'm going to make you backtrack for just a second here. I mean, how we got here. Because you've done things for the UN. Let's talk a little bit about the bigger picture of why you do this. What do you find happens by using?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of points. In 1998, I was actually hired to sing at the UN Commission on Sustainable Development. And when I found out what was going on there, I said, wow, I didn't even know this was going on. And I became involved. I became a trade union delegate, and I serve on the Energy and Education Caucuses as well for the Commission on Sustainable Development. They tackle a different issue every year, or now every 2 years. One of the issue that they're dealing with right now is a 2-year cycle on climate change, what they call energy for sustainable development, not always sustainable energy, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, that's a difference. Yeah, that is a big difference.
A few years ago, as an environmental educator, I realized that I needed to know whether climate change was real because I started to hear about it. I didn't really know about it, so I started educating myself. And when we came out here, I had already kind of shifted my focus to climate change because it's a topic that I can address every other issue. It's like
climate change.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I use this image of a salad bar. I'm a salad bar person. I like to go to the salad bar and take a little of everything.
Yes.
I don't like to have to decide.
Oh,
so with climate change, I don't have to decide.
You can cover everything.
Right
the
there.
Ecology and toxins and
water.
Oh, of course.
Sure, water and recycling and energy and economy and human health, you name it, it's in there.
That's so true.
I started connecting a lot of dots for myself, and what we're trying to do in Penguins on Thin Ice is, in a fun and engaging way, connect dots for other people.
Can we hear something from Penguins on Thin Ice?
Sure. We'll do a song. This is a song that actually comes from a Dixie Chicks song.
Okay.
It's the song, it was originally, and still is, Goodbye Earl. I was taught this song by a 12-year-old girl. And I just thought it would be fun to make it into Goodbye Oil.
Oil, okay.
So this is, I'm going to get our little machine going here, and we're going to do Goodbye Oil for you. Okay, there you go. Rock it. Government and oil were the best of friends, all for their old school days. Both members of the Old Boys Club refined in the American way. After the elections, the vows were taken, and all of those who paid and toiled had to be paid back for their hard work, and the debt was to be paid in oil. Oil.
Oil?
Oil.
With combustion engines and housing heat, and lights in every building and street. Planes to fly, cars and trucks to drive, and faster paces than you could meet. Well, 100 years of burning oil wreaked havoc with the air, land, and sea. The droughts and floods and changing climates made it so we finally had to see that oil had to go.
Na 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 na.
Oil, those SUVs.
Na 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 na.
Oil, you're feeling hot.
Na 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 na.
Oil, you're in the dark.
Na 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 na.
Oil, the enviros came in and brought a warning, but people didn't want to hear. They kept on buying those SUVs. The truth gave them too much fear. Well, the years went by and spring turned to summer, and summer faded into fall. And it was clear by the year 2000 there was barely any fall left at all, because oil had to go.
Na 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 na.
Oil.
Na 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 na.
So we bought solar panels, yeah, photovoltaics, put them in our windows and roofs. We buy hybrid electric cars, windows and biomass, and do the conservation groove, because oil had to go.
Na 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 na.
Oil, we need a break. Do you know what's at stake? Oil, what a surprise.
Na 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 na
Watch the sea level
na
rise.
na.
Oil leave you in the ground.
Na 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 na
Here's cleaner
na
power to
na.
Oil, was that all right?
Na 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 na
Good,
na
here's a new way inside.
na.
Oil, goodbye, oil. You're in.
What fun! What fun! Oh, I can see it's so catchy. Not yet. We'll do that one next. What catchy tunes! I can see people going. You know, it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It doesn't have to be dark.
Exactly. Exactly. The whole idea is to do it in a fun, entertaining way. We want to involve perhaps people who wouldn't necessarily hear this message otherwise, including young people especially.
Right.
I would imagine they'll catch on.
And this is for young people to perform. I mean, I'm just demonstrating,
yeah.
but we had middle school students perform the show here on Orcus in the original version, where we're planning a performance here with middle school students or high school students here in this winter.
Wonderful.
And in May, 2 months ago, we had 18 high school students from the High School for Environmental Studies, the High School for Environmental
Wow.
Studies in New York, perform 4 songs from the show at the UN for a Youth Caucus meeting sponsored by the Youth Caucus, the Trade Union, Energy, Education, and Indigenous People Caucuses.
Fabulous.
And not everybody can say that.
I remember it. I remember it as well. Right. So I want to go back to sort of the bigger picture of why do you do this? Why do we do the arts in the education anyway? I mean, some people consider it superfluous. I mean, the funding is not there for it.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to answer? Yeah. I'm sorry. Just bang my microphone. Well, we know from our experience that music is a great motivator. It gets the blood flowing, it gets you breathing, it gets your heart rate up. It's a way of really having fun and learning something and communicating. And it's also a great learning tool because it helps to remember things. It helps to retain concepts.
Yeah.
Right.
And I imagine there are a lot of people that aren't going to be book learners.
Right.
That are going to follow this.
And one other thing is that people will play a song or sing a song over and over and over again. And that's something that really gets into your head.
Really,
Right.
through the music. That's right.
Right,
It's
right.
next to us.
Yeah, and some... going to say one other thing about it, which I'm not thinking right now. But one of the girls that did the show with us in 2002 said that she would listen to the song called The Balance before she went to sleep every night. Really? You know, it has an emotional appeal, and I think we need that. We're in our heads so much, and we're dealing with facts and information so much that we really want to communicate on a heart and a spirit level as well. I think those are really important to integrate.
I'd like to hear what she listens to every night. Yeah? The Balance?
The Balance. Okay. The song is The Balance.
And this is a song that Sharon wrote.
How do we find the balance? How do we find the key? Where would you look to find it? I want you to tell me. How do we find the balance? How do we level those scales? Think about the animals, from the frogs to the whales, and then tell me what you think. Take time and think hard. Think about what life is like beyond your own backyard. How do we find the balance? How do we find the key? How would you like to write the next page of history? How would you write the next page of history? How do we find the balance? How do we find the key?
I can see why she'd want to put that on at night before going to sleep, because looking for that balance is very soothing to hear, I mean, melodically. But also, I mean, I'm moved, I'm here, you know, because I can imagine a young person saying, what page am I going to help write in history?
Right.
So you're really placing somebody in the big, big picture.
Right.
So there's a kind of global quality here, you know, not just the little local things that people are doing.
Exactly. I love that it asks the person, how would you write the next page of history? And if you're 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 years old, you're writing the next page of history. It's up to you.
Of course, and certainly our generation has to look at what we need to keep doing to be responsible. We're living in the peak time, you know, both peak population, but also peak affluence, and peak usage of materials. So I feel like you're singing not only for the young people coming up, but you're singing to this generation to say, we've got some responsibility here.
That is true.
Yeah,
Like
we found that we communicate so well with people of every age group because these are issues that concern everybody. And when we were doing Turn the World Upside Down in New York, something was bothering me and I couldn't pinpoint what it was. I felt dissatisfied with something. And it occurred to me that what I was dissatisfied with was, why do we have to try so hard to get people to care about this ecosystem that is supporting our lives? There's a disconnect. We're disconnected from each other, from our communities, and from the planet. So what we're doing, our work is to reconnect. And we're doing that for ourselves as we're doing it for other people.
So how are you doing it for you?
And then locally, and then regionally, nationally as well.
In what ways? In what ways making those connections?
Well, in one way is to, where do we live? What's right around us? What's affecting our lives? When we turn on the tap, what are we drinking? You know, that's where we were with Turning the World Upside Down. Where is that?
Where's the water coming from? That's right.
Where's that coming from? And now, as we're focusing more on climate change, We're focusing on what do we do in our daily lives? What are the choices? We all have choices to make, and even if you're not old enough to vote, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of choices. What are you going to use? How are you going to use it? You know, little habitual behavioral things that we make choices about every minute without even thinking about it.
Turning on the light switch, leaving on the water tap, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have a lot of people that are under age 18, you know. The vote is an important thing. There's many other important things that go along with it.
Well, of course, in our culture, a huge part of our vote is how we put our dollars, as well as how we put our energy. And young people are a huge part, huge part of that.
We're trying to raise awareness about that, too, in terms of energy subsidies. What does that mean? The various costs of different types of energy is something that we're starting to integrate into the show now, because some types of energy seem to be cheaper than others, but there are all kinds of costs that need to be factored in.
That's connecting the dots in a different way, whether they're subsidized financially like the nuclear industry is, or whether the costs are in the health downwind from a toxic site that may not be paid by the corporation but are paid by the people.
Right. So we've been trying to tie in for our local community here, you know, what are our energy choices, what are our options, what are we paying for right now? You know, and we have a lot of great options here in the Pacific Northwest and even right here in the San Juan Islands.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. We have, you know, renewable energy companies here. We have biodiesel. We have solar and wind right here in our islands.
You are a nice spot for that because you have all those resources sitting at tidal energy available for you to go renewable. That's great.
And we have options to purchase more green energy through Power Grid also.
Yeah.
But I'm taking that and also tying it into the national picture. What are we consuming here that is also being consumed in the wider nation? How is that affecting people in various areas? We've been meeting people from the coal mining, mountaintop mining communities of West Virginia and the Black Mesa coal mining communities in Arizona, and seeing what the devastation of the ecosystems and the health crises there, the cancer clusters. Just the devastation that's been going on for 100 years and is still going on. And now that we're talking about relying less on oil, coal is coming into the picture more. There's so many serious drawbacks to using coal, so we're trying to
add that into the connection
and help people in other regions of the country that are not being represented, that are being underrepresented. Yeah.
Is there another song?
Yeah, talk about energy. You know, we find ourselves for the last few years in an energy crisis that may not have been real on one level at one time, but it certainly is real now. And so we'd like to do a song called Energy Crisis.
Okay.
And this is a little demonstration of the rap aspect of what we do.
And this is another song created by Sharon Abreu.
For the students. There are lots of schools in the USA, but no one's asking what we got to say. We're not old enough to vote, and even if we could, who's to say our government would do what we think it should? Energy crisis is what they say. Who's pulling the strings? Who's gonna pay? Who's gonna pay? Break out! There's tons of energy inside you and me, in the sun and wind, and sometimes in the sea. There's plenty of energy yet to be used, hydrogen and some biomass fuel. So don't talk to me about no energy, because there's plenty all around. All you got to do is see. Yeah, there's plenty all around, and it starts in you and me. Energy crisis is what they say. Who's pulling the strings? Who's gonna pay? Who's gonna pay?
Boy, it's an important thing for young people to think about. Who is going to pay? And who is paying now?
Yeah. We're trying to really, really drive that home. Who is going to pay? What are we doing to our kids by the choices we're making?
Really, because the energy, the high petroleum usage and the high natural gas usage, I'm just thinking about our food supply. that we depend on those for to be able to feed the world at the level that it's at, and those are coming down.
Yeah.
Big questions.
A lot of considerations. Yeah.
What do you find the most rewarding about what you do? Give me a, sort of, you're getting a chance to speak to young people. Got a little moment. We've got about 7 minutes left, so we got a little time in here. We could do another song before we end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I'll just say for me, music is my way of connecting with the world. If we talk about connecting, that is how I connect to the world. And so talking about what's rewarding for me is just finding a way that I can connect with all kinds of people and find the people and let them find me that are concerned about these things and get together in a fun, rich, warm, rewarding way. And to me, that just works great.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. The connection that we make with people is very gratifying, and that we can give a gift and we get it back. The energy, literally the energy in us that goes back and forth is so rewarding. And that we can bring something to people and to young people and say, we're making this available. You can use this. You can bounce off it, do your own thing.
Great.
But we want to give somebody a tool. So we set up the website at penguinsonthin-ice.com. People can go and listen to song clips, read the full script, which is still, it's evolved. We're always tweaking, adding little things, but the full script is there. And background information, and we are available to consult with community groups, school groups, faith groups that would like to put on the show and help to give a voice to people that might not have all of this at their fingertips.
And have a good time while they're at it,
and have a great time doing it. The students we've worked with have had such a great time. That's very gratifying for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what happens in the script in the Penguins on Thin Ice? What happens, just in a nutshell? What's the story here?
Okay. Well, there's 2 versions. We have the stage show, which is a musical review, which means it's not plot-driven. It's easy to memorize, fast-paced pieces of dialogue that connect the songs, and it's focused on the songs. 40 minutes long, fits into a class period. Easy to memorize, easy to put on the show, just as basic as you want it to be. Then we're also started working on a 28-minute animated musical feature. So we're in the process of getting that together. Who's going to do the animation, seeking funding for putting that all together. And that we intend for MTV, for PBS, for distributing to schools. And that has a plot, which I will let Mike
The penguins, their ice shelf is falling apart. They get on their iceberg. They float down. They eventually end up in Rio de Janeiro. They do a little concert there. Somebody sees them, loves what they do, takes them to New York. However, New York, the dastardly oil slicks find them and put the real penguins in the zoo and disguise themselves as the penguins, yes. And then, of course, they have to be rescued from the zoo. And they get out, and not only do they get out, but all the animals get out, and they all march to the UN, and they bring the whole world into their lovely, beautiful vision of a new world, and everything turns around, and everybody all over the world is so enthused by this that they start doing all the right things: biomass,
yes,
solar, wind, and the world is saved. And then they get to go back to Antarctica, which is where penguins
because we turn around the global warming,
exactly,
right, and they get to have their ice back, and
that's
it's not
right,
thin anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, good.
So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
We're having a good time. We really think that there's tremendous potential. I feel a lot of hope because I see how many great people in this community, in this country, and in the world are doing great things. It just, the thing that concerns me the most is that there seems to be a real time limit here. Yeah. We have 7 to 10 years to stop the global warming trend before it's irreversible. And even if we can stop it 100 years down the road, we need to do what we can. So the time factor is important. But we can have a lot of fun and really empower ourselves. And there's so many advantages in terms of health and economy to be doing that.
And community and connection.
And community connection,
yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Have we got time for another song? We've got, what,
sure.
5 minutes, 3 minutes in here?
We'll do a live song, and I'll ask you to hand me that instrument over there.
This is a song I wrote called Economology.
Economology.
Or economy ecology.
Economy ecology. Right.
You count it in.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
There's a lesson that is dawning on humanity, a species that has suffered from insanity. It's a very simple lesson of prosperity. The economy depends on the ecology. Now many years back in old Iraq, agriculture was invented. Population increased, cut down all the trees. Now that place a desert. The economy depends on the ecology. Economy depend on the ecology. World see come economy. The economy depend on the ecology. See, you and me are the economy, and we depend on the ecology. If the world isn't healthy, neither will we be. Economy depend on the ecology. There was a place called Love Canal. People had to work aplenty, but a factory man put poison in the land, and now that town is empty. The factory depend on the ecology. The factory depend on the ecology. Don't poison the land, Mr. Factory Man. The economy depend on the ecology. I don't think war will solve a problem. It only bring devastation. Let's stay home and take care of our own land, and we will have a stronger nation. Democracy depend on the ecology. Freedom depend on the ecology. Your side, my side, everybody. Everything depend on the ecology. The factory depend on the ecology. A university depend on the ecology. A baseball, football, democracy. Everything depend on the ecology. You and me depend on the ecology. She and he depend on the ecology. All of we depend on the ecology. It's a lesson that is dawning on humanity.
Yes. Thank you. That's a foot stomper. Everything does depend on the ecology. Yeah. You're right.
That's how it's economology. Sniglet or whatever.
You might need to get the words out. Economology. I am here at Peak Moment, Community Responses for a Changing Energy Future, and we're talking about economology. I'm Janaea Donaldson. Join us next time.